Greetings, sacred sisters. June Allen here. Um, yes, lovely to see you. I'm live, just making sure that everything technical is happening okay. I'm really excited about sharing some updates and reflections about the retreat that I did on Saturday, the Healing the Black Mother Wound retreat, and it was all about managing Mother's Day, and I'm still buzzing from it actually when I think about it. Um, yeah, it just makes me smile because it's the first retreat that I've done since before COVID in person, and yeah, I didn't realize how much how much I miss teaching. Actually, I didn't realize how much I'd miss teaching in person, and the attendees also, they really didn't realize how much they needed it as well. Just being around other sisters, talking, and some of the more seasoned sisters that have been working with me for a while in my membership, they also came down as well, and some of them they'd met, it was the first time they'd met each other as well, which was really lovely. So it was just really, really nice um, to be of service and just to meet up with everyone and do all of that. So before I kind of get into the reflections, if this is the first time that you are joining one of my broadcasts, my name is June Allen, and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. So, I'm a racial trauma therapist, and in my one-to-one practice, I work with Black women to experience unapologetic self-love through exploring the relationship with self, the mother wound, and systems of oppression. I'm also a business coach as well, and I work with professional Black women who struggle with visibility in their business, and I work with them through exploring their relationship to receiving, money trauma, and systems of oppression. I'm also an author, and so yes, I'm also in 12-step recovery, so I write a lot about the link between racism and addiction. I write about racial sobriety. So if you want more information about any of those things that I've spoken about, and you want to find out more ways that you can work with me, you can click the link in my bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So let's jump into my reflections. Yeah. So I split up the retreat into three sections. First of all, we did an emotions game just to kind of check in to find out where everybody was. Obviously, I'm not going to get into detail about specific um, information that was shared there, because obviously confidentiality is really, really important, an important part of the safety, building trust, and all of that stuff. So I'm just going to give you like an overview of some of the themes that came up. Okay, so yeah, we first of all we looked at where everybody was at that in that particular moment. How do they feel about the relationship with their mum right now, and maybe what happened last year and stuff like that. Just how they're feeling generally. Where are they now? And yeah, it was interesting. Some of them, quite a few of the women, talked about it was still a very painful subject for them. Some were no contact, some were low contact, and what also came out of it actually in the initial sharing about where they were at the moment was there was still a lot of anxiety. There were still Black women that had anxiety around being around other Black women, and that is a result of that's how the mother wound shows up in the present time. And this is one of the reasons why I always bring that up. I always bring that in as part of the conversation, especially when I'm kind of framing the space in the beginning. I always bring up that conversation because I think a lot of women tend to hold a lot of shame and guilt and confusion around why they feel that, why they feel so uncomfortable around other Black women, and the mistrust around other Black women. They don't really understand it, and also they feel that they're the only person. They feel like they're the only one that feels like that. So something that I always do at the beginning of any of my sessions, especially when I'm working with women that I haven't worked with before, um, is to have that conversation. Is just to say it out loud. You might be feeling anxious about it, and immediately what tends to happen is there's a sigh of relief. I'm not the only one who that there's that sense of, oh, okay, well, I'm not the only one that feels like this, and now I understand what's happening at the root of it. So that's always really, really good to see as well, when people start to understand. And that's how I began to create a lot of safety for the women to be able to start sharing, because they start to identify. And Yeah, what else was really beautiful was seeing, the more seasoned sisters that I've been working with for quite a while, just to see how much they've grown and how the relationship that they have with each other has really shifted. From having their own anxiety about being around black women to actually embracing each other, supporting each other. And for the new ladies that were there, it was lovely to see, what's possible. And it gave them hope that, these women that have been working with me for a while had this relationship with each other. And the ladies that I hadn't worked with were able to see, yeah, they were able to see what's possible and how sisterhood can be built, when you start doing the work on yourself and start to really engage with each other in a way that feels safe. So that was really, really beautiful to see. And I felt a bit like a mother. I felt like a mother, a mother hen. Yeah, just seeing how they've grown and all the rest of it. It was just really beautiful to witness, and it was quite humbling to witness how they interact with each other, and how much they've grown, and how they're speaking up and standing in their power, and still continuing to do this work, and still continuing to explore and claim agency over their identity, and who they are as black women, becoming really powerful black women. So that was really, really lovely. The other thing that came out of it, um, that was quite funny, but at the same time, it was a real honest moment. Somebody was, the topic came up around, it takes a village. And, I kind of said, it does take a village to do this work, but, unfortunately, a lot of our village is mad. There's an insanity in our village. And, as a result of the trauma that's not been addressed, due to what's happened to us over the last 500 years as a community, what's happened to our ancestors on the plantations. And I said this to the group, none of our ancestors went to therapy when they left those plantations with all of that trauma. So it makes sense that all of so much of that stuff is being passed down. And without somebody actually making a decision to do this healing work, it's going to keep showing up in the relationships, it's going to keep showing up, in the sisterhood, it's going to keep showing up in the parenting, it's going to show up in your love relationships. It's going to show up because it's not been dealt with. And what we don't address is destined to be repeated. The pattern is just going to keep showing up. So although everyone was laughing when I said that, the reality is it's important to also own the fact that the village is not as safe as it used to be. You know, it's the village is unsafe in many ways because there are so many elders that are still acting out, that are still being abusive, that are still being manipulative, um, and as wounded daughters, a lot of us are still supposed to just put up with it and not say anything, and to just carry the weight of the pain and the trauma that comes with the challenges in the mother daughter relationship. But what's important about this work, is to really own the impact that relationship has had, and to start to think about, okay, well, what do I need to do? How can I begin to start taking care of myself? Because, it's important to understand the interactions that happen, but it's also important to understand, okay, well, what's in my control? What's in my control to change? Because I can't change my mum, I can't change the other person, I can't change what they think about me, I can't do the healing work for them, I can't make them change, I can't make them love me in the way that I need to be loved. So it means that although so many people in our village, there's an insanity that's in our village, we can also be discerning. When we start to do our own internal work, we can start to be a lot more discerning about about who we choose to be in our circle. It's about being intentional about who we choose to be in our circle, and actually setting boundaries around those that are not able to show up for us in the way that we need to show up, or the way that we need them to show up. Because a lot of people don't want to do this work. A lot of people don't want to do this work, and unfortunately, there are parents out there, there are mothers out there that think that just by default of being the mother, that they just, you know, that everything just supposed to be revolving around them, and you're not supposed to have any feelings, you're not supposed to have your own thoughts, you're not allowed to be your own person, you're not allowed to set boundaries, you're not allowed to say, actually, you hurt me, or, you know, all of that stuff, those that power dynamic, you know, is still playing out. And because as a community we're living inside a system of oppression, as well, which adds to the conflict, which adds to the confusion. It then becomes, you know, the daughter is often the one that's silenced. Yeah, the daughter is often the one that's silenced, and yeah, and just she's just not able to speak. She's just not able to speak. So there are so many layers to this, and this is one of the things. I don't know if I've got a copy of the workbook to hand. Have I got a copy of the workbook to hand? Probably not. I don't think I have, actually. I think I put them away. Let me just see if it's in here. Because I created a diagram of the what the mother wound actually looks like. I don't think I can share my. Yeah, I have to maybe do it in another post or something. But yeah, it's very difficult. I don't think I can share my screen on here. Can I share my screen on here? No, I don't think I can. Okay. So anyway, I'll have to do it in another post or whatever. But yeah, just understanding the layers that come with understanding what the black mother wound is, and it is obviously outside. I created a circle. Outside of the circle was the systems of oppression. Internalized in the circle inside, there's the mother and daughter relationship with all the other impact. You know, the low self-esteem, the domestic violence, the all of that stuff that's in the center. You know, that creates chaos for the mother-daughter relationship. So we understand that the pressures of the systemic oppression externally is impacting the relationship with the mother and daughter. But the way that we do the healing work is, you know, we work from the inside out. So we work from what's happening with the daughter, and then we look at the relationship with the mother, and then we look at the systemic issues, you know, and that's how things start to change. But yeah, it's really understanding all of that, and just doing an overview. Obviously I didn't go into it into too much depth, because you know, that's kind of like that's a process over time to do that work. But what we really did focus on in the session is, you know, we did it kind of like a general check-in as to how they felt about the relationship with their mum in the present. And you know, we started to look at, well, okay, how does that relate to Mother's Day? You know, do you even want to celebrate Mother's Day? And we talked about the importance of, you know, having a village, you know, that isn't mad, being discerning about who you choose to be in your village, and because being witnessed, you know, is really important. And this is something that was really powerful about the work that I've done with the more seasoned ladies in the group, is that, you know, that sisterhood that I've created for them has now become their sisterhood family. Okay, it's become their sisterhood family. They've chosen each other. You know, they connect with each other outside of the work that I do with them and stuff, and it's become a really powerful, safe place for them to talk about what's going on for them. And that for me is just absolutely magic just to see that in action. So yeah, the idea around the village being insane, and having to really take responsibility for ourselves first, so that we can begin to rebuild the village and all the rest of it, is really important. So gosh, what else came out of it? Yeah, something that was quite profound, that came out of it. Because I did a section on, I did a little bit of inner child work with them as well. We had like a little, had like a knitted doll, and you know, got the ladies to just to connect with their inner child, and to think about what does the inner child want from Mother's Day, because quite often there's different parts of you that has a different relationship with Mother's Day. Maybe the adult part of you, you know, thinks one thing, the child part of you might want something else. Then there's the mother part of you, of your identity, that has another relationship again. So the inner child part is the part, um, that finds it difficult to connect to Mother's Day if obviously there's a if there's a mother wound there. So it's really connecting to the younger part of yourself and asking the younger part of the, what does that part of you want from Mother's Day? What does that younger part of you need? And sometimes it means, creating a space for the younger part to grieve. So maybe, writing a no send letter. Maybe the younger part is pissed, is still angry with the mum, so they could again write out what's going on for them in a no send letter. Obviously, not going to send it to the mum, but they can write it out just to help to get their feelings out and stuff like that. And also the idea of, what does play look like as well, because play is an important part of reconnecting to the inner child. And yeah, it was very profound talking about play, because what came up is that so many of the women find it difficult to, and it's something, it resonated with me, in the set, and I got quite emotional when I was sharing my experience, because I find it difficult to play as well sometimes. There's something about play that feels like a challenge. And um what I know is that in order to feel comfortable being playful, there also has to be safety. Okay, there also has to be safety. So that kind of that block around being able to be playful is linked to, is a trauma response, because if there was not a lot of safety growing up when you were young, then, and you were kind of hyper vigilant, then that means that it's going to be difficult for you to be able to play, because play requires you to feel safe, and if you don't feel safe, then you're not going to feel comfortable playing. And so always being on guard, that hypervigilance, that always feeling like you have to be on guard, is something that has kept you safe. Okay, so that was a bit of a revelation, when I was sort of sharing that with the ladies, that play is really important, but so many of us find it difficult to play because of the trauma that we experienced when we were children. And um, and so reconnecting with that inner child and allowing the child to kind of to start to reconnect with play is really important. So that's something that I might do in a future workshop, actually, because I think that's really, really important. It's important part of the work. So yeah, the last thing that I'll share that came up, one of the themes that comes up over and over, was the shame and the guilt and the isolation that comes with doing this work. A lot of women feel like they're betraying their mothers in a way by speaking up and by sharing how they feel about things, and just not feeling comfortable in sharing it. And this is one of the reasons why I share so much of my own personal story around this stuff, because I will say the things that the women are thinking, that others are thinking, or they feel like they can't say it, and the women in the group were actually saying to me that's one of the reasons why they trust the work that I'm doing, because I'm not just talking about this work from a position of being a therapist. It's not all just coming from my head, it's actually coming from personal experience as well. The challenge that comes from being estranged from your mum, setting boundaries, and yeah, really having to show up for yourself around this stuff, and actually doing the grief work around it, and learning how to reparent yourself. And also looking at the challenges that come up when you're actually a parent as well, when you're a mother, and how the enmeshment of what happened to you as a child, how that sometimes can um, show up in your parenting style, and having to be more self-aware, and having to process a lot of stuff, and process a lot of grief, around having to parent differently, and choosing different ways to interact with your children, because there's no, obviously there's no blueprint for parenting anyway. But when so many of us are trying to raise children with the history of trauma, whether it's within your family of origin, or whether it's intergenerationally, it's very difficult to raise children when you've got that stuff going on, and just having to really start from scratch, and start to do the foundational work around this stuff. It's not easy, it's really hard. It can be really hard sometimes to be able to do that. So yeah, there was still a lot of guilt and shame and isolation around having the conversation. But you know, also what comes with that is, you know, me creating a space for women to talk about this stuff also comes with a lot of relief. You know, there was a lot of tears, but there was also a lot of hope, you know, in the retreat. And that for me is really powerful, because it means that things are shifting, and that so many women are having the courage and you know, the bravery to really start doing the work, and really knuckle down and doing this stuff, you know, doing the stuff that our ancestors couldn't do, doing the stuff that your mother can't do in therapy, and stuff like that. So yeah, I just felt really humbled by the whole thing. And I'm really pleased that you know, I was just going through the feedback sheets, and the feedback was really powerful. But what's really come out of it is that, you know, there's a real hunger for more. There's a real hunger for more spaces like that, where women can come down and meet in person, and explore these stuff, be curious about what's going on for them, and learn how to understand how, you know, how they can really learn to love themselves again, and how they can learn to you know, create better boundaries with their mothers, and how to, yeah, how to understand how racism and patriarchy and systems of oppression in general have impacted our relationship with our mothers, and how we, what we can do to begin to heal those things. So yeah, so stay tuned, because I am going to be doing more. I'm actually working on the curriculum and stuff like that, doing a series of yeah, doing a series of events that can begin to really carry on doing this work. So you can have the opportunity to explore, and really start to build your sisterhood, and start to do this really challenging, really difficult work. So if you're interested in joining me for that, if you go to my website, if you go to heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net, you will find lots of information there about how you can register your interest. I've set up like a waiting list for people to be able to just register their interest. And obviously, as the work, you know, as I'm developing stuff, as I'm creating stuff, then you'll be notified. You'll be on my email list, and you'll be notified when things come out. So that's it. So I hope that, you know, if you attended, I hope that, you know, these reflections brought back some really hopeful memories of you, to be able to yeah, just to think about what's happening, and also to think about what you need to do as well for Mother's Day. If you didn't attend, and you would like the workbook around you know, how to manage Mother's Day and all of that kind of stuff, that's also going to be available in my shop. So I'll put all the details and the links and stuff below, so you can go and you can purchase that as well if you want to do that. If you want to work with me one to one, if you want to yeah, you want to do some work, some motherhood work in a more private capacity, there's also the option to do that. You can go to callme.juneallen.net, or actually, if you go to heal.juneallen.net, the link's there as well. All right, so that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.